The Grim Sleeper, Unmasking Lonnie Franklin Jr. Welcome to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast, where we dig deep into the stories of some of the most elusive and dangerous criminals in modern history. I'm Jay Nicoll of Nicoll Investigation, and in today's episode, we're looking into one of Los Angeles' most notorious serial killers, Lonnie Franklin Jr., also known as the Grim Sleeper. The name Grim Sleeper strikes fear for a reason. It belongs to a man who terrorized South Los Angeles over more than 2 decades, evading capture, what became one of the most disturbing crime sprees the city had ever seen. So who was Lonnie Franklin Jr.? How did he manage to slip through the cracks for so many years? Perhaps most hauntingly, why was he given the nickname the Grim Sleeper? Stick with us as we unravel the twisted tale of a man who hid in plain sight. Segment 1. Who was Lonnie Franklin Jr.? Franklin was a former corporal in the United States Army who also worked as a Los Angeles city trash collector and as a garage attendant at a Los Angeles Police Department station. Many believe Franklin's work as a garbage attendant, his access to landfill sites, allowed him to hide many other bodies. At the time of his arrest, he had been married for 32 years. At his murder trial, prosecutors painted him as a sexual predator who killed women who weren't submissive enough. These crimes were about power and control, prosecutor Beth Silverman told the jury during her closing arguments. It's clear the defendant got pleasure from killing these young women, because that's how they all ended up, Silverman said. Definitely wanted to degrade these women by dumping their bodies like trash. He got off on that too. And that's why he did it over and over. It gave him gratification. Franklin's longtime friend Ray Davis testified that Franklin's conquest, a common topic of conversation between them. Franklin took photos of various women and joked that he had names for all the girls in the photos, depending on what their breasts looked like. He also said that even though Franklin didn't smoke marijuana, he kept a supply in hand for his various girlfriends. After Franklin's arrest, detectives found more than 1,000 photos and videotapes of women and teenage girls in the former sanitation worker's garage and backyard camper. Franklin served in the U.S. Army until receiving a general discharge in 1975, after serving less than 1 year. During his trial, Lonnie was accused by prosecution of taking part in the gang rape of a 17-year-old female in Stuttgart while he was stationed there in 1974. He was never convicted of this crime, has never been proven. In 2011, prosecutors announced their belief that Franklin allegedly killed at least 6 more women, in addition to the 10 women he was convicted of murdering. Segment 2. The Crimes in the Sleep. Lonnie Franklin Jr. earned the name the Grim Sleeper because of what appeared to be a long gap in his murders, 14-year-old pause between 1988 and 2002. The supposed hiatus baffled investigators for years, and many questioned whether he had truly stopped killing during that time. We'll come back to that pause later on, but for now, let's go back to where this all started. Franklin's crimes took place in South Los Angeles, primarily targeting vulnerable black women from impoverished neighborhoods, many of whom struggled with addiction or lived on the fringes of society. The first known victim was Deborah Jackson, who was killed in August 1985. Franklin's modus operandi was brutal but consistent. He would shoot or strangle his victims and then dispose of their bodies in alleys, dumpsters, or side streets. The LAPD noticed similarities in these murders but faced an uphill battle. Victims came from marginalized communities, which historically received less attention from the media and law enforcement. As a result, the cases were initially linked, but went largely uninvestigated for years. Segment 3, the known victims. Each of these individuals had a life, a story, and loved ones who waited years for answers. Here's what we know about these women and their tragic fates. Number 1, Deborah Jackson. Date of death, August 10th, 1985, age 29. Deborah Jackson was the Grim Sleeper's first known victim. Single mother, she was described as loving and hardworking, always putting her family first. On the night of her murder, she'd gone out, telling her sisters she'd be back soon, but she never returned. Her body was later discovered in an alleyway, shot 3 times in the chest. Number 2, Henrietta Wright. Date of death, August 12th, 1986, age 34. Henrietta Wright was known for a bright smile and kind spirit. She had experienced hardship but always remained hopeful. Wright's body was found partially clothed in an alley with 2 gunshot wounds to her chest. A cloth was stuffed in her mouth, a detail that would become a recurring theme in Franklin's murders. Number 3, Barbara Ware. Date of death, January 10th, 1987, age 23. Barbara Ware's family described her as caring and thoughtful. She was last seen heading out for the evening. Her body was found on a South Los Angeles alley, wrapped in a garbage bag with a gunshot wound to her chest. This was another instance. Franklin left his victim in a secluded area, hoping to avoid detection. Number 4, Bernita Sparks. Date of death, April 15th, 1987, age 26. Bernita was lively and well loved by her family. She'd been planning to meet friends when she disappeared. Her body was found in a dumpster, and she'd been strangled and shot. Police found that a cloth was also lodged in her mouth, similar to the case of Henrietta Wright. Number 5, Mary Lowe. Date of death, November 1st, 1987, age 26. Mary was known for her compassion and her nurturing nature. Family described her as someone who always went out of her way to help others. She was last seen by her family just before Halloween. Her body was found in an alley with a gunshot wound. Like other victims, she was left in a manner that showed Franklin's disregard for her humanity. Number 6, Lucretia Jefferson. Date of death, January 30th, 1988, age 22. Lucretia, a young mother, was beloved by her family. She was last seen by a friend before her murder. Her body was discovered with a gunshot wound, and a napkin with the word AIDS was found nearby. A chilling note left by Franklin was seen as a sick, mocking gesture. Like others, she'd been shot and left in an alley. Number 7, Alicia Alexander. Date of death, September 11th, 1988, age 18. Alicia was the youngest of Franklin's known victims at just 18 years old. She was described as sweet, caring, and close to her family. Her father reported her missing after she failed to return home. Her body was later discovered in an alley, shot in the chest. The tragic death of Alicia Alexander left her family devastated, and her father spent years advocating for justice. Number 8, Princess Berthomew. Date of death, March 19th, 2002, age 15. After the supposed sleep period, Franklin's next known victim was Princess Berthomew. At only 15, she was the youngest known victim. Princess was a vibrant young girl with dreams of a bright future. Her body was discovered in Inglewood, and she had been strangled. Her tragic death shocked her family and the community as Franklin appeared to have resumed his crimes after over a decade. Number 9, Valerie McCorvey. Date of death, June 11th, 2003, age 35. Valerie was known as a resilient and loving mother. She was last seen heading out for the evening, and her body was later found in an alleyway. She'd been strangled, showing Franklin's switch from using a firearm to physical force. His change in method raised question amongst investigators about his activities during the supposed sleep period. Number 10. Janisha Peters. Date of death, January 1st, 2007, age 25. Janisha was the Grim Sleeper's last confirmed victim. She's a free spirit with a contagious smile. Her body was found on New Year's Day in a dumpster, wrapped in a garbage bag. Franklin reverted to his older methods, and her case led to renewed investigations that ultimately helped catch him. The survivor, Anitria Washington. While not a murder victim, Anitria Washington's encounter with Franklin was key to his capture. In 1988, Washington was attacked, shot, and left for dead. He survived and provided a description of her assailant, as well as details about his vehicle. This encounter proved vital, as her memory and bravery would eventually help bring Franklin to justice. Each of these women was loved, with dreams and aspirations were cruelly cut short. Franklin's actions had a profound impact on their families and communities, sparking conversation about how certain lives are valued or overlooked by the media and law enforcement. Segment 4, the break in the case. Now here's where the story gets chilling. For over 20 years, Franklin continued his brutal crimes, seemingly with no one on his trail. However, in 2007, a woman named Anitria Washington survived an attack. She was left for dead, but resilience and courage would eventually become crucial to solving the case. Washington was able to describe her assailant and even identified Franklin's car, a key piece of evidence. Around the same time, the LAPD launched a task force called the 800 Task Force, dedicated to solving a series of unsolved murders. In 2010, they finally caught a break, using DNA technology that wasn't available during the initial investigations. Investigators used familial DNA searching, a process where the DNA of close relatives help identify suspects. Sample taken from Franklin's son during an unrelated arrest matched the DNA found on several of the victims. Finally, they had a suspect. On July 7, 2010, police arrested Franklin at his home. What they found there would shock even the most seasoned investigators. Inside, they discovered hundreds of photos of women, some of whom were unidentified, may never have been reported missing. It was as if Franklin kept his own twisted archive of potential and actual victims. During the 3-day search of Franklin's property, investigators allegedly found women's necklaces, rings, earrings, and watches, as well as more than 500 photographs of various women, many of them naked or engaged in sex acts. In one of Franklin's bedrooms, criminalist Rafael Garcia discovered an FIE Titan 25 caliber semi-automatic handgun, otherwise known as a pocket pistol. It was later determined to be the gun used to kill Peters. In a backyard garage, an LAPD firearms examiner found a Polaroid photograph of survivor Washington, who later testified against Franklin at his trial. Also found was a photo of Peters. In the same envelope, they also found the school identification card of 18-year-old Ayala Marshall and the Nevada driver's license of 29-year-old Rolenia Morris. Both women have been reported missing in February and September in 2005, respectively. Both women were last seen in the vicinity of Franklin's home at 81st and Western Avenues in Los Angeles. Their bodies were never found. Segment 5, Trial and Revelations. The evidence was overwhelming. The DNA linked Franklin to at least 10 murders. Prosecutors argued that he was responsible for many more, yet he pleaded not guilty. During the trial, prosecutors laid out the harrowing details of each case, painting a picture of a man who exploited and preyed on society's most vulnerable. 2016, after nearly 6 years of delays, Lonnie Franklin Jr. was convicted on 10 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder for the attack on a tree in Washington. He was sentenced to death. Franklin's trial left a lingering question. What about those 14 years? That so-called sleep? Many believe that Franklin never actually stopped killing. Possible he simply changed his patterns, became more cautious, or chose victims who were less likely to be missed. Some investigators theorize that his crimes during that period remain unsolved. Families left to wonder about their loved ones' fates. November 3rd, 2011, authorities stated Franklin was being considered as suspect. 6 more slayings. Police were investigating 2 of the 6 as potential victims, killed during the Grim Sleeper's 14-year lapse. Of the remaining 4 victims, 2 bodies were discovered in the 1980s. 2 were reported missing in 2005. The remains of the other 2 were never found. Detectives say they have linked Lonnie to the 6 additional murders after reviewing old cold case files. The public's helped in identifying the photographs found in Lonnie's home. The possible victims. He was never convicted of any of the following murders, but investigators believe Franklin was responsible or connected to their murders. Sharon Alicia Dismuke, 21. Prosecutors suspect that Sharon Dismuke was a victim of the Grim Sleeper, which, if true, would have been Franklin's first victim. This has never been proven. Sharon was not considered a victim of Franklin's until after his arrest. Sharon's new body was found on January 25, 1984, in an abandoned gas station. She had been gagged in the same .25 caliber pistol that was used in the Anisha Peters murder. It was also used to fatally shoot Sharon twice. This gun would later be found in Franklin's bedroom. Thomas Sylvester Steele, 36. Thomas Steele's body was found at the intersection of 71st Street and Halldale Avenue, Harvard Park. Franklin was never charged in connection to Thomas's death due to lack of evidence. Authorities stated that Thomas was possibly a friend of another victim or had discovered the killer's identity. Inez Elizabeth Warren, 28. Inez Warren was found on August 15, 1988 in an alley. Inez was alive and immediately rushed to a local hospital. Shortly afterward, Inez passed away. The bullet killed her was never recovered, but authorities did state the close-range shot to the left chest, the trajectory matching the shots that killed Franklin's other victims. She was not considered a victim of the Grim Sleepers until after Franklin's arrest. Georgina Mae Thomas, 43. Georgina Thomas's body was found on December 28, 2000, 1 mile from where victim Barbara Ware was found. Shooting had similar attributes to the other murders. When authorities searched Lonnie Franklin's home, they found a .25 caliber pistol that was later proven to have killed Georgina. She was not considered a victim of Franklin's until his arrest. Ayala Gabatza Marshall. Ayala Marshall's body has never been found. Last seen in February 2005. School identification card was found in Franklin's garage. Evidence linking Franklin to Ayala's disappearance is not sufficient to pursue. Rollinia Morris, 31. Rollinia Morris's body has also never been found. Last seen September 5, 2005. Her Nevada driver's license and 2 sexually explicit photos of her found in Franklin's garage. Prosecutors presented this evidence at sentencing. After being sentenced to the death penalty, Franklin died in his prison cell at the age of 67 in San Quentin Prison on March 28, 2020. His cause of death was not released, but he had no signs of trauma on his body. Segment 6. The Legacy of the Grim Sleeper. The case of the Grim Sleeper underscores the gaps in the justice system, especially in cases involving marginalized communities. Franklin's crimes went undetected in part because his victims were largely overlooked. Community activists, including Margaret Prescott from the Black Coalition Fighting Back Serial Murders, worked tirelessly to bring attention to these women, advocating for justice even when it seemed out of reach. Today, the Grim Sleeper's case, a chilling reminder of how easily evil can lurk behind the guise of normalcy. Lonnie Franklin Jr. was a former mechanic, husband, father who blended seamlessly into his neighborhood. It's a reminder that monsters don't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes they live right next door. Thank you for listening to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to learn more about similar cases, don't forget to subscribe. As always, keep questioning, keep searching, and stay safe.